You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know.
Good evening, Matt.
Howdy, Rob. Oh boy, Rob, it's my favorite time of year. It only comes around once in a big long while, but it's happened. It's finally
That's right,
happened.
listeners. It's finally time for another episode of Dungeons and Data, our unique value proposition as a role-playing game podcast is we talk about the data. You know what everybody comes to a podcast for? That's charts, graphs, numbers, breakdowns, statistics. I know that's what you're here for, and that is what we have for you today.
We have always strived, Rob, to turn unstructured data sets into actual dungeon master activities. It's our one and only goal. If I had my druthers, like this would be every episode of the show. But we do have to actually give some dungeon master advice occasionally.
Genuinely, what's funny about that, I wouldn't actually hate if we did more data. The problem is there's really like, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but there is not actually that much data to dig into. Like if you want to try to find,
have some hope, just so you stick around for this episode. We have a poll from a very popular YouTuber. We have enough of a time series from Foundry VTT. We have some industry survey data. We have some Gen Con events. But Rob is right. Normally there just isn't any data.
Yeah. So this is actually an exciting episode because we have gathered some data to talk about. And there is some like pretty cool stuff here. But yeah, part of the reason why we can't do more data episodes is because both, like, I think the industry keeps their, cards close to their chest, and there just is not that much information, I think, to begin with. So
yeah, why would you publish how many books you sold, right? It's never going to benefit you. And I mean, the thing that I'm actually interested in is like, what are people playing in their daily lives, right? Whether they bought the book or not, what are they actually playing? And of course there's no, government TTRPG commissar checking on people's houses and recording their evening activities.
D&D had been invented in the Soviet Union, we would have data. There would be a czar of, well, they wouldn't call him a czar. There would be a data commissar. They would know how many books were sold, how many players are playing at every table. We would have all the data we would ever want.
Or in the British Empire, I would say.
Or in the British Empire, that's true.
Just great data collectors for evil. So maybe we've collected
for bad.
I mean, this is, I think, a question I'm always interested in is how can you measure and quantify something that you can't directly observe? And I think we can try and be as smart as our limited time and limited brains can allow. And so we don't have measures of what are people actually playing every week, because the American Community Survey just does not record what people play, which system is their favorite. The Census Bureau is lacking. Rob, I do have to tell you, I did check some of the like bespoke industry consumer data sets to see if any had a role-playing game question. The closest I can find is, I think, I can't remember if it's like SafeGraph or Data Axle, one of these just awful fucking names, does measure like whether people spent money on board games and other similar games. But considering how much the board game and other similar games, aka Magic the Gathering, dwarfs the TTRPG market, I don't think there's anything meaningful you can pull from that.
Yeah, there's no Nielsen rating for TTRPGs. There's just not that level of polling or sentiment analysis, and also no one cares. It's not enough money to motivate that type of data. So we are forced to,
which is why our sponsor for today's episode is Palantir. Palantir, with its new Orthanc device, put it at the center of your table, and it measures all conversations you have, seditious or otherwise, and will, as a side benefit, collect how many hours you spent playing which TTRPG. Which one's popular? You'll know now with Palantir. Rob, I tried
finally-
Palantir at my house. I touched it and I saw the eye of Sauron, Thiel.
The eye
in
of
my
Peter
mind.
Thiel,
Yeah.
Bloodshot, and Juan staring down at you.
One of the best parts of the movie, like Peter Jackson, just going back to his old horror roots and jump scares and stuff like that.
It's so good. It's so good. Let the horror guys cook. They know what they're doing.
They really do. We just have we have no data. I think the best we ever had, and you can go back to episode 11 of this show, is that Roll20 used to report its usage statistics. And then I think they figured out like this is too much work and it actually sort of harms what our market is trying to do. Like no systems like, why should I develop Roll20 assets when I can see that no one's actually playing the game or buying them? So it's not going to help me. So that was 6 years ago. 3 years ago, well, we compiled a bunch of social media Reddit statistics. And then Reddit decided that, we can't just let people collect these statistics on posts and subscribers easily without paying a bunch of money because this data is valuable. So I no longer have those to compare over time.
But we do now have a unique and interesting data set. One that we are going to have to put some major... Well, here's the thing. The things we just discussed were also not exactly like complete. Like they were still pretty like narrow slices of the market, but they were a helpful view into some portion of TTRPG, of the market, of how people engage with it. And so is this, but we're grasping at straws here, folks.
Yeah. No, but this is really exciting because we had two community efforts, one quite large and one smaller but nuanced. One from Reddit, sort of a state of role-playing games poll conducted by its users, in one of the subreddits r/RPG, and then a poll conducted by very popular and very good D&D/RPG YouTuber Bob the World Builder. And this one, I think, is maybe the one I want to start with. It's notable because of its insane value. This poll had like 28,000 responses, which is just a heck of a lot of responses.
It's a huge, a lot of people filled this out. Kind of nuts.
Yeah. And I don't think we've ever had a data set like there's probably close to that many people playing Roll20, but they never after a certain point they stopped releasing raw numbers and just started giving percentages and stuff like that. So this is just a huge survey, and it's got some problems. But first, to commend and thank Bob the World Builder for actually releasing the underlying data. I was like, if I was a really not as cool YouTuber, I would like show the results of the poll and then keep the data table to myself or something like that. But no, he just here's the exact submissions I got. Boom, here you can do what you want. And so that's what I did. For our Patreon subscribers, if you ever at patreon.com, there'll be a link to a Google Data Studio visualization of this poll that you can click on and break down. And there's not really too much to see because one of the advantages of the poll is it was a Google form, which is very accessible. So there's very low barrier to entry. Lots of people are going to fill it out. And there were not a lot of questions, right? All the things that data nerds love, like, all right, and now put in your zip code, and now put in your gender, and now put in, your age. All these things that you can use to like break down data are missing. But the result is that we got a lot of responses.
Well, yeah, and Matt is going to walk you through some of the errors in this poll. But
they're not errors. They're just maybe if I was building the poll, I would do it differently. But I'm not a data person and therefore not as popular as Bob the World Builder. So maybe I wouldn't get as big of a sample.
That's the thing, is whether or not he intended to do it. Bob World Builder made a smart choice by keeping the poll to 2 questions so that he got as many responses as possible. A more detailed poll would inevitably have gotten far fewer responses, and from people who love filling out forms exclusively, which is a major problem with polling and surveys in general. So there is something to this.
Let's just get into it.
Yeah.
Poll was open for 2 weeks, 8,000 responses. It was just 2.5 simple questions, which is 1, what is your favorite RPG? And then you could pick from a list, or you could put other and then write something in. So there's the half. And then the last question was yes or no. Have you played that RPG in the last 12 months?
Which is a good, smart question, because I think I might say, I'm not sure off the top of my head, honestly, what I would say my favorite RPG is, but there's a good chance I haven't played it in the last 12 months. I'd have to think about it, but that definitely is actually, that's probably not true for me, but there are times when that has been true.
Yeah.
So that's a good question.
It's not what the question I'm always interested in, which is what are actually people playing on a weekly basis, but it's got to be some approximation of that.
Yeah.
If people have a favorite RPG and they played it over the last 12 months, then that goes to show they are playing that game.
Yeah.
I think phrasing it, what is your favorite RPG, is interesting in that I think it does encourage sort of Stanish behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, Rob, you and I are like RPG nerds and snobs and stuff like that. And I would feel ashamed if I put like Dungeons and Dragons 2014 as my favorite role-playing game. But like, that's also silly of us. Like, if it's your favorite, that's great. That we're snobs. It's like saying, but I would look down on myself. It'd be like saying I love a Big Mac or something.
Well, and I think that's,
psycho behavior on our part.
Here's the thing: I enjoy a McDonald's chicken nugget meal and other various things. I would never say that McDonald's is my favorite restaurant, but if somebody did say McDonald's is their favorite restaurant, it would be psycho behavior for me to be like, disgusting Philistine that person is. How what common taste they have.
Oh.
So I would, like Matt described, feel ashamed if I was like, oh yes, D&D is my favorite role-playing game system. But that is a perfectly fine answer. That's totally valid.
I think it could also go the other way. I don't know how many RPG snobs are out there, but I imagine, I was like, would people approach this question like me? Oh, I better say something obscure and smart so in this anonymous poll so that no one will think I'm cool. But that does go through my head when I'm taking polls. Oh, I better say something smart as my favorite.
Something interesting, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's, listeners, you've probably already guessed at the results of this poll. So let's talk some hard numbers, Matt, and then let's talk about some
then we can get into some nuance
inferences. But what is your favorite? Number 1 is
Dungeons and Dragons 2014.
2014 with 3,260 responses. Surprisingly, question mark. I don't know if I'm surprised or not. I am surprised at how close this is. But a very close second is Pathfinder, which, Bob, I must say, did not specify first or second edition, which caused some problems.
You would be in a good company among the thousands of people in the comments of this poll, being like, "How dare you divide Dungeons and Dragons up into editions, but not Pathfinder?" Or something like that. So Dungeons and Dragons is divided into editions, and so there's almost as many Dungeons and Dragons 2024 responses together. They're over 20% of the poll. Now I think the most, and there are smaller numbers for earlier editions of D&D, very, very small numbers. I think the surprising thing about this poll, unlike all the other data sets that we've looked at, which usually show that Dungeons and Dragons since, 2017 has been some plurality or usually majority of the answers. Like D&D is like 60%.
70 or 80% sometimes.
Or but I think it's the, if I have to try and explain it, I think it's the the favorite part of the question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which maybe does make this an interesting and useful question, even though it's kind of weirdly phrased and hard to answer. But
Well, I think, and if we look at the rest of the poll and, click at the either go to Bob the World Builder's YouTube video or our data looker studio, is the diversity of games. There's a lot of different games listed in the list and in the write-ins for this. So much so that if you exclude the top 20 games, which the 20th game is Mothership with 285 responses, 1%, those 1% or thereabouts and less responses make up almost a third of the poll. 27.9% are other games that are, a couple hundred or dozen people saying, hey, this is my favorite game. And of them, usually 70 to 90% of them say, I have played this game in the last 12 months.
So for reference, for comparison, the other games, the those polling individually 1% or lower, are as many people as 5e, Pathfinder, both 5es and Pathfinder combined. It's or very, very close. We're talking a third in both cases. And that is interesting.
I think the other breakdown and takeaway I was able to pull from this data set is that our overall number of have you played your favorite RPG in the last 12 months is 83.6%. And that is typically, not always, it depends on the game, a higher percentage for the more popular games. I mean, this makes logical sense. If your favorite game is Pathfinder, the percentage of people who said that and then said they played Pathfinder is 91%. If your favorite game is the Wild Sea, indie darling of the Forged in the Dark system, the number of people who played it in the last 12 months is only 75% of respondents.
Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway I'm getting at is people, and there's no distinction between DMs and players in this poll, want to play these more bespoke games more than they are able, or they have fonder memories of these. It's hard to say.
I think both are valid conclusions. I would say I would be so interested to know more, but I would say the one that makes the most sense is that if you have a favorite game that's not one of the most popular, it's harder for you to find a group or find a DM or find players or some combination of the three. That would be sort of like a logical conclusion for me. It is interesting to me how. Well, no, I guess not. I guess I would expect it's. I'm pleased that the number is so high that most people get to play their favorite game at least once a year. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that indicates a healthy hobby. It is also cool that if yours is one of the higher ones, that it's or one of the more popular ones, that it's so high. Well, something that I thought was notable, and these numbers are small by comparison, but on this poll and some of the others we'll talk about, Daggerheart occupies a pretty high position. It is the 5th most popular response, which is still only 5%. And then just a couple places below it at 7th is Draw Steel, which is pretty impressive given how recent these games are and how pervasive and how sticky Dungeons and Dragons is. We also should mention that Bob World Builder is mostly a Dungeons and Dragons content creator, and this is not a criticism. So I actually think it's quite interesting how diverse these responses are, given that he mostly makes content about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. I will say his content is not uncritical. In fact, it's quite critical sometimes, but critical or not, there's sort of no such thing as bad press. He is talking about D&D most of the time, And when he's talking about running a game, he's usually talking about D&D or Shadow Dark or designing something.
Yeah.
It's one of those two systems. So the fact that those two systems, which have the market of YouTube cornered, don't actually hold favoritism in the heart of even their fans.
Yeah. Well, and not to make any assumptions about Bob or his business, but I get the sense that maybe he'd like to do something else, but D&D is where the money's at. If you
It
look
was
at
all
his,
a master plan to get dungeon tubers to cover other systems.
if you look at his website, he's got a bunch of supplements, which I don't know, would be fun to read at some point. But one of them is for Shadow Dark, one of them is for DCC, and one of them is for Daggerheart. And then I think he has
Nice.
a couple older ones that are for 5e. But clearly, he's interested in. These are still D&D likes, as we have discussed. These are sort of under the Dungeons and Dragons umbrella, but they are not 5e. Anyway, the point is that this, I think the fact that this is not a blowout for 5e, given Bob's content and audience, is very interesting. I think that's notable.
Yeah. Oh, Fate 166. Only 64.5% have played it in the last year.
Oh,
yeah.
rough.
I do.
That
I do
one kind
sort
of makes sense because maybe
Yeah.
you're fond of Fate. Maybe you have like good
Yeah.
memories, but like you don't. It's hard to get people together to play Fate these days.
Yeah. I think the other like big takeaway here is that I did not go and do the work of grouping all 135 listed choices and the hundreds of other write-in choices by genre, but just eyeballing the chart. Fantasy is still king, right? Everything from Dungeons and Dragons to Dragonbane. Second place seems to be like it's been in many of our other Dungeons and Data things, horror and Call of Cthulhu, Delta Green stuff.
It takes, not counting the write-ins, it takes till the 9th entry, Call of Cthulhu, before you get something that is not fantasy, and that's
something that's not fantasy and also not specifically D&D, right?
Yeah,
I consider Draw Steel D&D, right? We've had this conversation.
Yeah, it is D&D, which is interesting to me. That means that from this data set that people like overwhelmingly want to play fantasy and a fantasy game that resembles D&D. Which I guess is not surprising, but I do forever lament the way that for the tabletop role playing game community that playing role playing games means playing D&D. Sometimes I am trying to do my part to break this, but it seems this just reinforces the fact that for a lot of people, that's what it means to be to play role playing games.
Yeah. Even looking at the write-ins, again, which there were 2,800 in this poll, right? The top ones, many of them are there because people didn't read the instructions of the poll, are things like Pathfinder, Mithras, Ars Magica, Mage the Ascension, Rollmaster, Basic Fantasy, Earth Dawn, Legend of the Five Rings, The Dark Eye. These are, some of them are D&D like fantasy, others are just fantasy, but people like magic in their role-playing games. Is what
they sure do.
This. I think, go ahead.
One thing that was interesting to me, and listeners, if you think this is interesting, I hope you do. Take a look. But I was scrolling through this, and it was interesting to me how low on the list a lot of what I would describe as like buzzy games are. So, Slug Blaster is on here, Troika, Mouse Ritter, and others that I have seen, people who I respect and I think are knowledgeable, people who are, designers who are involved in the space have been very enthusiastic about. They are represented here, but very in very limited ways. And that doesn't
31
mean
people said Brindlewood Bay. You know,
right. Brindlewood Way
a
is a great
game we
example of
both
this.
love.
A game we both love and have run and played in. And
I think it's the do you think it's all of these like Mouse Ritter, for example, or Slug Blaster or Brindlewood Bay? They're all so specific. And D&D is specific too, but it's not so in our mind because of the inherited culture. And so if you say my favorite role-playing game is Brindlewood Bay, you're identifying something about yourself that like, well, my favorite role-playing experience is Cozy Grandma Horror.
That's true. That might be an artifact of the question. That's a good point. It's still,
but I think there is something there. I mean, you can put that caveat aside, but those are very low.
Yeah, no, I just think it's interesting because based on the sort of like word of mouth and the praise that these games have gotten, I am surprised to not see them higher on the list. Though that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't know if you recall this, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when we did this last time, and we looked at, for example, this is about Kickstarters. Actually, this is one of our Kickstarter episodes. We looked at some particularly popular Kickstarters. I remember Avatar being among them, and we compared.
Right. Only 17 people said it was their favorite RPG.
Right. We compared the size of the Kickstarter to how many people were playing it on Roll20 at the time, I think. And I remember that the delta was massive for games like Avatar, but I think Lancer was actually, despite being a relatively small showing in the first place, had it was the subreddit size and activity is what it was we compared it to.
And here we have this confirmed. Lancer punching above its Kickstarter weight.
Way above its weight. Yeah. And in some of the other data sets that we have for this episode, Lancer is overrepresented, which is cool. It's a great system, and it's, you know, kind of an indie darling, but like actually I think a lot of people are playing it, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, you know, Avatar Legends, 12 mil or $9 million or whatever, 17 people. Cosmere, was it $12 million, 112 people. So respectable, but that's still 44th. Now, again, it just came out. Maybe people haven't, you know, played it enough to make it their favorite, but also
it's been out about as long as Draw Steel, like maybe a little less, but you know, I don't know that that's an excuse. I guess here's the thing. I have been subscribed to the Cosmere subreddit because this is you know, I'm curious, and there are people playing it, but I do not know that there are very many. Yeah, to be honest.
I think, oh man, speaking of are there very many people playing it? One other outlier punching above its Kickstarter weight, or maybe equal, it was $2 million, is DC20. Yeah. There's 465 responses.
I saw.
However, you know, and this has not been unnoted by the poll's author and many other commenters. Of those 460 responses, let's see, more than half of them came in on the first day the poll was opened, and then like by day 2 it was at 340. So like I can't assign motive to anonymous poll people, but I can accurate or semi-accurately gesture at motive when you see an outlier like this. This poll was shared among internal DC20 Discords, Reddits, communities, chats, boosters, and they're like, we want to get more people playing this game. Share this poll around and put DC20 as the answer, or something like it's something along those lines, because that is a heck of a lot of submissions on the first day when you have more than half and the poll was only like a quarter or 2/5 complete on the first day.
Yeah, far be it from me to impugn the dungeon coach or his community, but I am skeptical, if for no other reason than then he is a YouTuber
Yeah.
and operates in the same sort of space as Bob Worldbuilder. So like even if it was not an intentional brigade, it would be sort of inevitable that his fans would
all of the DC
poll.
20 people, they watch YouTube channels like The Dungeon Coach, which happens to be Bob the World Builder. They see it. There's no sinister conspiracy here. It's just perhaps punching above its weight, perhaps not, though. We can't really say for sure.
Hard to know. It is very high on the list. I mean, Nimble is number 8, which I was delighted to see. I think of all the clones, copycats, the that we talked about, Nimble was, and this is in our episode, Nimble was our favorite, is my favorite, and I'm glad to see that it's doing well, at least according to this.
Nimble's Kickstarter was not huge, right?
No, it was small.
And this is number 8. So this is another punch above your weight system, by just like Lancer.
Yeah.
Very, very clearly. Which I think when, as we've said before, when we're judging Kickstarters, which give us hard numbers in real currency, like a prediction market, people are putting money on the line and they don't have insider information and nothing weird is going on. People put real money in, but do people actually play the game? With Kickstarters like Lancer and Nimble, I think we can say the answer is yes.
Yeah, I definitely do think so. Which is cool. Like, I mean, the bar is low, for something like Nimble or Lancer, because, the initial gathering was modest, and they seem to be doing really well. I have a half-baked theory, Matt, and I don't, we're gonna have to save this for like a Kickstarter episode or something else, but like, it seems to me that the like low 6 figures Kickstarters, your Nimbles, your Lancers, the ones that have a modest but enthusiastic following, do better, are more serious, and have longer shelf lives than the massive blowout mega $1 million TTRPGs. Obviously, there's still time in for all of those to prove me wrong, but I just, looking at the field, I truthfully have not been super impressed with any of the like really like big Kickstarters. They have, in my opinion, not really delivered on the high volume of funds they have gathered. But like I said, this is kind of like,
I would say Draw Steel had a lot of funds and did deliver, I think, exactly what it was trying to do.
Draw Steel is the exception here. That's true.
I do agree with you. Like, there is something about that. There's one designer that has a clear vision. They're not part of a corporate culture. This isn't a Kickstarter for a role-playing game studio that makes it part of their business model. Like Nimble or Lancer, they raise enough money to pay themselves and get it done and get the art and layout and editing commissioned, but not that much more. And then they make a good game like Nimble or Lancer. And it's less than $500,000, I think, on both of those, and they delivered something. Here's a fun stat out of left field, Rob. 204 people said that Shadowrun was their favorite game. Only 52% of those have played them in the last 12 months.
Honestly, Matt, that
makes sense.
That could be me. Like, it's not me right now, but Shadowrun, for all of its deep and abiding failures, remains pretty close to my favorite game. And there are definitely times in my life, and I have not played.
There would be like a mood on a certain night if this poll popped into your onto your phone.
Yes, that's right.
You would click that, and then sadly click the second question.
And I have not played it in a year, and I probably won't play it in the coming year. But it does hold like a special place in my heart. So I do feel like a kinship with those 100 or so people who are like, yeah, Shadowrun is my favorite game. I get that.
Yeah. Let's quickly take a look at this poll that was put together on Reddit, which had a sort of a deeper methodology, but it's from Reddit, so it's
from Reddit.
People
so
who are I would say less normal than YouTube.
I definitely would say
ever since our Reddit episodes uses Reddit now.
I am a longtime Redditor, I say with great shame. And YouTubers aren't super normal either, but if you comment on Reddit, you are definitely not normal. So
right.
take this one with an extra big grain of salt, because at least we know that normies watch YouTube, right? And they'll probably fill out a form. Fewer normies use Reddit.
And there was only a couple hundred responses to this, but again, D&D first place with 113, right, followed by Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Shadow Dark, Mothership, Vampire, Daggerheart, Draw Steel, Mythic Bastionland, Blades in the Dark. I think this is it's sort of interesting in that we have these two very disparate polls. Could have been completed by many of the same people, but that are generally showing a similar picture of, and this is answering the question, which TTRPGs have you played this year? So people can answer multiple ones. Stuff.
Yeah. And I do think it was interesting that Daggerheart and Draw Steel showed up so high on both of these polls. Not at the top, but they're in the top 10 in both cases, which is very interesting to me. It does to me suggest this thing is real, right? These games are the real deal. They are, I don't want to say like taking market share, but I think they are actually like they are bringing players in and building their own audiences. Like I think Daggerheart and Draw Steel are like legit games that are going to be part of the conversation going forward.
The the other like interesting thing is that this poll also asks the questions, which ones have you bought or read this year? And at the top are indie darlings, I would say, or small press darlings. Again, this is the RPG subreddit, so that's like what this subreddit is for. So it's dog asks for treat, I think, is the headline here. But Mythic Bastionland, Daggerheart, Draw Steel, Mothership, Shadow Dark, Dolanwood, Cairn, Pathfinder, D&D is the order of our most read or bought, which I think is very interesting.
I did think it was interesting that Mythic Bastionland was the highest. Everyone bought it, but far fewer people have played it, which actually also kind of reflects my experience. I am still trying to find time in a group to do it with, even though I love Mythic Bastionland.
Listen, take my advice, Rob, and just text your friends knights or like the sword or castle emoji repeatedly at random times. That's how I got my group together. And the other interesting thing is, again, I would say the people on Reddit are RPG/RPG are like RPG nerds, but the rankings of the VTTs are
that is interesting. Yeah.
Roll20 83, Foundry Virtual Tabletop 78. Now, my sort of impression and experience with both of these is Foundry is for the like real heads, right?
Yeah.
Roll20 is a little easier to plug and play. I think that's kind of changed over the last 5 years. I think it's pretty easy to use Foundry. But like Roll20 is like got like way more ads and stuff like that. And so again, but that might suggest that Foundry is close to our Roll20 numbers, maybe not. Owlbear Rodeo, which I believe is an open source VTT. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but is in a distant third with 33.
Yeah. I did think that was interesting too. I like Foundry and I've been impressed with it. And I used Roll20 for a long time and I don't know. I have my gripes with it. It works. It's fine. I'm not surprised to see, frankly, that Foundry is overtaking it because it does seem to be a better, more functional program. I've had a little experience with Owlbear Rodeo recently.
Okay, it is not open source. You can definitely pay for it. Sorry. I don't know where I was getting that from.
Which is cool, which I've liked. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Foundry ultimately takes Roll20's spot because of reasons.
Maybe that's why Roll20 has just been buying other things, so it can also just be a marketplace for PDFs and stuff. Anyway, speaking of why I want to bring up Foundry, in that there does seem to be a good number of people using it. We were promised other data besides these two polls, and it's been 3 years now since Foundry has been releasing their metrics of number of the top 25 systems, or sorry, top 30 systems, the top 30 systems installed on their platform. So you've installed the like rule module and played by play time on their platform. And again, it's a selection. It's people playing online. It's people playing with a software that is fancy, right? It's fancier than just getting on Discord. So there's some biases built into that data set. But this is as close as we're ever going to get to what are people actually playing. And it's no longer, there's no more OR report. We don't have Roll20's data, but now we have Foundry's data. So yeah, let's talk about the Foundry data, Rob.
Okay.
Unless you have any final thoughts about these surveys or anything.
No.
I think we check out the data viz. Hopefully you've been following along and clicking on it as you listen, as I know all of you do at your computer with your surround sound.
Since you
speakers.
definitely listen to this at your computer,
not while you're doing laundry.
Yeah. Let's take a look at what Foundry has to say.
Yeah. So let's start with like the most recent data, because it's out, and the Foundry data is in fact, when we get to the stat I'm interested in, which is the percent played, quite similar to like what we were seeing from the OR report. Gosh, not quite 10 years ago, but like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is that D&D 5th edition accounts for 52% of the play, and 60% of users have it installed.
Once again, an unsurprising second place entry, Pathfinder 2nd edition. I guess not. I guess, is that surprising? I assumed that most people have happily by now made the transition to 2E, but who knows? But
yeah,
so that
it seems like they have.
Yeah,
it really does seem like they have. I mean, if we go back to 2024, Pathfinder 1st edition is still in 5th place. Of course, several, another caveat is like there has to be the rules uploaded to Foundry for you to do this. But yeah, 3 years ago, 6% of systems had Pathfinder 1st edition, 33% had Pathfinder 2nd edition. I mean, I think VTTs lend themselves to playing games that take advantage of the rules and stats and spell and ability calculators that are in there, where you can click a button. It can almost be easier to play some games. For example, Draw Steel in a VTT than on paper. And so, seeing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, Pathfinder 2nd edition, and Lancer at the very top, these are all games that like battle maps, clicking a thing. And yeah, maybe we're not going to see Mythic Bastionland or Cairn in these complicated softwares.
Right.
Those people are playing on Discord if they're playing remotely.
Sorry, I did want to say one thing about the Reddit poll before we dove too deeply into the Foundry data, which is that there were a couple more questions we didn't go very deeply on, but one of them was, are there any individual creators, communities, or blogs you'd recommend to the TTRPG community? And out of 410 responses, not one of them mentioned us, Matt.
Rob, don't get mad. It's okay.
So I got to say that I can't trust any of these people. I think their opinions
not a
are
single one
utterly dismissible. Anyway, back to Foundry.
I think it does say, do you watch or listen to actual plays? We're not an actual play, so that doesn't count.
But then the other question, the next
mentioned in the we didn't get mentioned by please give us a shout out in the poll with a link. That's okay though.
It's okay. It's fine. There's not a lot of overlap between our listeners and the RPG community, as it turns out. Good for you, listeners.
Yeah.
Stay off of Reddit.
Yeah, man. I do like the the one like little quirk of this poll, which one of the questions of the approximately 300 people who answered it is, do you play solo TTRPGs, group TTRPGs, or both? 223 people said group. 66 said both. And one person said only solo RPG.
Only solo.
It's the perfect number of responses for
the
only
loneliest
play solo.
person.
There's one person. Cool. Yeah, gosh, man. We do have so much data now. And I think the other thing I noticed with the VTT stuff is that some things that maybe don't get discussed as much on like Dungeon Tube, things that have been around forever, like Call of Cthulhu, Cyberpunk Red, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, are still played by not a lot of people, usually like around 1% to 2% of people, but they're still being played on VTTs. So some of these classic legacy systems, a lot of staying power.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, and the numbers are small if we're not talking about D&D or Pathfinder, but they are comparatively significant, right? Warhammer Fantasy is 5th on Foundry.
Back to your earlier point about crowdfunding and like new systems, is I think we can say when we look at the VTT data and the polling data that Daggerheart and Drawsteel are real, right?
Yes,
in the sense that, of course, they're real. They're books that people have bought and paid a lot of money for, but they're real in that people are playing them because we have this VTT data that says, hey, are they as popular as Pathfinder? No. But considering that they're pretty new, a lot of people have started playing them.
Yeah, and I don't know that this says as much as I want it to, but I do think the VTT data is really interesting. Daggerheart is 9th with, again, like 1% of people having it be their
most played system.
But it's rocketed up 290 spots to be there,
I will. Oh, this is another interesting thing that I noticed, a parallel between these two data sets, which might make it sort of more true, is that, okay, we had the poll, what's your favorite system? Did you play it? For things like Pathfinder and D&D, if that was your favorite system, you definitely played it. The same is kind of true, with the Foundry data. If you said Pathfinder 2nd edition or D&D, it's pretty like as a thing you have installed, it's pretty likely that you played it. There's a lot of smaller systems, right? 6.5% of people have Call of Cthulhu 7th edition installed. It's only 1% of Foundry's population that it's their most played system. So again, a lot of people, it sort of just leans me towards the direction that a lot of people want to play systems that are not D&D and Pathfinder. They just don't end up doing it.
Well, and there's again, how much can you draw from this? But there's some very interesting numbers here between how many have it installed and it's their most played. Like De Schwarze Auge, The Dark Eye, which is a game that I've heard of, but I'm not German and have not read.
Yeah.
But it's got only 9% or 0.9, less than 1% have installed it, but 0.4%. It's their most played. So like about
similar
half.
to Pathfinder, right? If you have it installed, you are playing this game, right?
Same with Tormenta 20, which is I think a Spanish language game that I've also heard of. So these are really interesting to me. These ones with very low installed rates, but relatively high percentage played. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree, Rob. The last data point that I think we have is it is 1 month out from the biggest or almost the biggest gaming convention of the year. And if we look at uh, the Gen Con events list under TTRPGs pulled on the end of June for this event that is happening in the end of July, so a month out. So these numbers can change. We have no idea whether people will actually play these sessions or whatever. But based on the number of sessions, right? D&D is 26% of the sessions, 26.6%. The second place, Pathfinder. Third place, Starfinder. Fourth, Call of Cthulhu. Sixth, Pirate Borg. Seventh, Daggerheart. Eighth, Shadowrun. Ninth, Shadow Dark. 10th, DCC. And then 11th, Dungeon Crawler Carl.
I foresee a great deal of stress and unpleasantness coming from the overlap between DCC and DCC in coming years.
Is there going to be unpleasantness? They're the same. They're both dungeon crawler games.
They are both dungeon crawls. Just one is Carl and one is classic. Yeah. The thing is that I do think that it's really interesting how much consistency there is when it comes to Daggerheart, Drawsteel, Shadow Dark, and Lancer across all of these data sets. I would still be very hesitant to draw any meaningful conclusions, but they're all hovering around the same place comparatively, roughly, like very roughly. But like if you plotted these, it would look similar. Like you'd be able to draw some conclusions, which suggests to me that there is actually that this data is possibly representative or at least close to useful.
It's representative of something. I mean, I think the like caveat for our now third or fourth data type events at a con, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be people who love TTRPGs or wargaming so much they will go to Indianapolis, Indiana in the middle of the summer, right? And, these sessions, right? A game developer can send 10 of their reps to run 70 sessions during the convention, right? These are not pure like community things, but we do see the same patterns over and over again that people are playing systems that are not D&D. And I think the Foundry, there's going to come a point in time, I think in the near future, Rob. Here's my other like big takeaway. Unless a world historic event happens, you've got another episode or another season or show like Stranger Things, the most popular show in which D&D is in front of it. 9/11 2 happens, something big like a extrinsic shock to the system. One of those that, or an intrinsic shock, like D&D 6th edition is released 2 years from now and it's unexpectedly good or unexpectedly popular. That the trend is we might get to a point where in the like Foundry data, it more reflects this polling data or this Gen Con data. But, maybe we'll never get to that point. I suppose the Foundry data is like, hey, this is more normie. This is what people are actually playing, not what they want to play at a convention or want as their favorite. But we're close to D&D no longer being the majority is what I'm saying. Like it's 52% in Foundry. Like it's been ticking down by 1 or 2% in Foundry's data over the last couple of years. So I don't know. We might get there where D&D is no longer half of the games being played.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be wary of my own motivated reasoning here, right? But I do think
you should be careful. I want that to happen because it seems neat.
Yes, I would like that to happen. I think that would be good even for people who like Dungeons and Dragons. I think it would be good for it to be less of a behemoth. So like, I obviously want that to happen. I want to see that result in the data. But what we're looking at really does suggest to me that the overall cultural, market share of D&D is shrinking slowly but surely, and that other games are taking up more and more of people's time. They're spending money on them, and they often want to play them more than they are able to, which is the least surprising thing about this data to me.
Yeah, let's get into pure wild speculation territory.
Yeah.
We've got
Now
these
we get to
data
have
sets.
fun.
Yeah. And they're all incredibly niche, right? Even the
Yeah.
Foundry one, like you got to play on Foundry, right?
Right.
So what people are actually doing in normal America as they sit down and they listen to the Pappy O'Daniel Flower Hour and the Texas soft crust doughboys on their radio, and then play a wholesome game of D&D with the family, almost certainly is not reflected in this. It does give me the feeling that this moment of D&D majority might be going away. And here's my like wild speculation is we know lots of cool younger people, cooler and younger than us, have started playing D&D over
Which is
the
most
last
people.
10 years. Yeah, most people. Especially
are either
since the
cooler or
pandemic.
younger than us.
Yeah. Families, kids, Zoomers, all of these Gin Alpha, they picked it up because it's, just like you and I did, Rob, because it's the most popular system and there's all this stuff out there for it. The question is, will they make a similar, peel away like earlier generations have, where some people become true devotees but they're a very minority of D&D, but then other people are like, oh, well, that was fun. Could I tell other types of stories with TTRPGs? I think that's the big unanswered question. I would say yes, considering that we're already, Rob, generationally, like 2 generations, 3 generations removed from the silent generation war gamer type that D&D was kind of made for. And I feel like it's a very easy sell for us to be like, you want to play cyberpunk, you want to play space horror, you want to play something about sad nights. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just going to get even more powerful with subsequent generations.
I agree. And here's my wild speculation, right? So like in the same way that what happens at like the big fashion shows, right, isn't something that like you can wear, but that like not Anna Wintour says in The Devil Wears Prada, that trickles down. Like what you're wearing now is decided by people in fashion magazines like 6 months prior. And in the same way, whoever's watching Bob World Builder or going to Gen Con or playing on Foundry VTT or lurking on RRPG is maybe a not representative hyper nerd, but like those people run games, they buy games, they pitch those games to their friends and players. So
they're the tastemakers.
They're in some senses the tastemakers. They're driving the culture. They're deciding what is popular, what's going to be played. I don't want to put too much emphasis on this because I have experienced firsthand my players ignoring my pleas to play something else. But I do think that if all the people who design games, who like games, who homebrew, who run games are less and less interested in D&D, I think that will absolutely have a downstream effect. And I'm pretty sure that is data that we can reliably infer or from the data sets that we have.
Subway takes 60% agree.
No, I'll take it. I'll work with
it. I would say the countervailing force is that people who have never played an RPG before or played in, there's one person in the friend group who played D&D once and had fun at a bar or like some event or in middle school with their cool teacher, decide that they're going to bring a new group in. And that is like the constant churn of new people entering the hobby, which is great. And most of those people enter with D&D. So it's like the two opposing forces in our speculative model here are tastemakers pushing new things, which I think Rob has correctly identified that they want to play, but maybe don't get a chance, versus just new people coming in as the hobby hopefully continues to grow. We don't have any data from any of these data sets on whether the hobby is growing. I believe it is, based on anecdotal experience. But yeah, whether just the new people coming in and defaulting to D&D is a more powerful force.
Good point.
Does that make sense? As like
that makes sense to me. No. I think you're right. I think there is absolutely something to that.
Rob, we've talked a lot about data for a third time. If listeners, if you found any interesting data sets out there, obviously please send them to me immediately.
Yeah, send us your data, please.
If any of you has, I don't know, like $50,000 lying around and you want to like collect some data, well, let's do it.
Matt will tell you how to design your poll. Also, he'll help you do better data. But thank you, Bob, for sharing this with us anyway. And
thank you, Bob. Thank you, the person on Reddit who created their poll. Thank you, Foundry VTT, for, even though they're not sharing raw numbers, at least sharing something.
We appreciate it. We like to know things. It doesn't. None of this matters.
No,
it's just interesting.
It's interesting to me too.
We hope it was interesting to you, listeners.
Yes, obviously. Oh yeah, there's also the ICV2 market survey that does like toy and collectible surveys, which this is a data set where they just sort of poll retailers and are like, what are you ordering? What's flying off the shelf? And interestingly, their most recent poll showed Cosmere as the number. D&D has been number one since it overtook Pathfinder in 2014, but Cosmere is the number two. Pathfinder is not on the list anymore, but Starfinder is. Also, Legends of Aventress, Crooked Moon, and Daggerheart are in their top 5. But this data set is always a little weird to me. Like, things will make it on there, like the Transformers RPG or something. I'm like, I never heard of anyone playing this or talking about playing it. Maybe, again, could be completely out of touch because we don't really know. But yeah, this one was unexpected to see, or I guess expected to see. Hey, they are selling Cosmere. They are selling Daggerheart.
There's one thing that we know for sure is that Brando Sando fans will pay money to acquire his products. Whether or not that means any of them will play the Cosmere RPG, I remain unconvinced of, but I'm not surprised that they are buying it.
Happy Data and Dragons to all who celebrate, and to our lovely data sets and game systems. We thank you.
Happy Dungeons and Datas to all. If you liked this, or if you have thoughts, email us at dmofnone@gmail.com. Check out the links to our Discord and other things in the show notes. If you want many more episodes, head over to patreon.com/dungeonmasterofnone,
where you can also see links to my data viz.
Yes,
for this episode.
Take a look at the data viz. Matt worked very hard on it. Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.